Hi there, YouTube. This is the Magnus, bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. Today, my opponent chose to play as the Warriors of Chaos, and I elected to then bring the Dwarfs as a counter. Now, the reason why I chose to do this is not so much that the Dwarfs are a great counter to Chaos, but from an educational standpoint, because you've probably seen on my stream I play as Chaos against the Dwarfs all the time, so I wanted to see how it was from the other side. So let's take a look at the composition. Up front we have 7 of the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. Great weapons because shields are not as interesting when we know our opponent has no missiles, and great weapons are very interesting when our opponent is likely to have a lot of armor. We brought 2 of the Thunderers, armor-piercing range units, holding their guns up high. I also brought the Goblobber, which is the Regiment of Renown of the Grudge Thrower. A pretty cool unit. The leadership thing's probably not going to be that great against Chaos, but it's still going to do very good damage. We also have 3 of the Miners. Miners are quite good against highly armored targets because they're armored piercing, and when you add in the buffs you get from leadership, they're quite capable and amazingly good for their price. Very, very cost effective. In the very rear, in the center, we have the Grumbling Guard, Regiment of Renown of the Longbeards with great weapons. These guys keep everybody nice and fresh, so they're a very important part of this army. And the Dragonback Slayers. As far as leadership, we just have Thorgrim and his fancy throne there with his Book of Grudges, and we have a Runesmith. Now, the thinking with this army, you'll notice it's very infantry heavy, very little artillery, very little missiles, not a lot of bells and whistles to this dwarf build. And generally, this is the way you want to go with the dwarfs, because with the buffs you get from Thorgrim, the Runesmith, and the Grumbling Guard, which these guys are the holy trinity of a dwarf army. If you really want to be competitive as the dwarfs, this is a must-have, the Runesmith. Gotta have them. Really should have Thorgrim Grudgebearer unless you're doing something atypical, and you almost should certainly have the Grumbling Guard. They're going to keep your guys from getting tired, which is a huge advantage as the battle stretches on, which battles as the dwarves tend to stretch on because you don't do a ton of damage, and it takes forever to get your guys off the field. So if you have this trinity, what you really want to do is stock up with a lot of melee infantry, cheaper melee infantry, miners, dwarf warriors, maybe a couple of the Longbeards, but not too many. You want to have a lot of units on the field, so all that plus melee attack all adds up. If I have 10 units with plus 8 melee attack, that's 80, right? Total points I'm getting out of the deal. If I have 20, that's 160. So obviously the more units, the more bonus. So let's take a look at my opponent's Chaos army. He bunched up here a little bit, which is going to be good for my artillery out of the gate. But he has 3 Chaos Marauders up front. Behind them, he has 3 Aspiring Champions. Behind them, 3 Chaos Warriors with great weapons. And in reserve, he has, in the very rear, he has the Chosen with great weapons. He also brought a Hell Cannon, fantastic unit for against the Dwarfs, and a flying squad of a Chaos Lord, a Sorcerer of Fire, and just a straight-up Feral Manticore. So let's go ahead and see how this plays out. I'm going to start off by targeting his Chaos Warriors with great weapons. Specifically the ones in the center. That way if we miss to the left, to the right, short or deep, we're going to be hitting some Chaos guys. Of course, he's going to be firing off his Hell Cannon. So it's going to start off with a bit of an artillery duel here. Look at that. Look at that. It's just 3 hits on the unit that we wanted. These are armor-piercing rounds, so they are good and effective against Chaos. So he does something interesting here. It looks like he's trying to get his infantry out of artillery range. So we'll see if that does anything for him. But again, this stuff being bunched up in the center is hurting him. We're getting a lot of damage, and we've even got a few kills. And what we really want to watch, and what I was watching during this engagement, was how many kills does Hell Cannon have versus how many does my Goblobber have. As long as I even keep it close, I'm well off, because as you'll notice, I have about twice the men on the field. So even he's got to kill a lot more guys for this prolonged artillery engagement to pay off for him. Again, I keep dumping on this unit. Chaos Warriors with great weapons. They're down to damn near half their health, and they've lost 16 models. So they're going to be considerably less effective. And we've done some damage to surrounding units, but nothing considerable at this point except for these aspiring champions. So boom, another good solid hit. The Goblobber tends to be pretty darn accurate. I like it quite a bit. It tends to fire about 3 projectiles every round of firing or whatever. And generally you'll get at least 2 hits. So there we go. There's one out of those 2. And here comes a third. Let's see if it's going to prove me right or make me out to be a liar. Bang! Alright, thank you. Just on cue. So right now the Hell Cannon has 13 kills. And my Catapult Goblobber has 23. And you'll notice I'm making some changes to my lineup here because I know he's dying to get in here and mess with my artillery and probably to a decent bit also my Thunderers. So don't want to let that happen. So you'll notice I'm going to keep the Dragonback Slayers very close. I'm going to keep Thorgrim close because I don't want him to try to snipe him, and then behind's the Grumbling Guard. So I have a lot of power surrounding my artillery. So he's going to make a play up. As soon as I see him doing that, I start sending my Thunderers over. I want to show him right away there will be consequences if he tries to get into my units. We start to get some shots off here on his Chaos Lord, which does not a ton of damage at this range and just a few shots, but it's enough to let him know that I'm paying attention, and it's going to be very difficult for him to get in there. And I'm keeping my Dragonback Slayers close to the Thunders whenever possible. So he's going to back off and the artillery battles can continue. We're going to go ahead and speed up during this because it's fun watching people get blown up, but it's not exactly a this is kind of like the precursor to the battle. Think of it as the appetizer of destruction. And there, that was a bad run. They're firing long, so I just keep dumping all over these Chaos Warriors, just getting as much damage in as I can. They're even starting to take some leadership penalty, as you can see. His Hell Cannon now sits at 37. My Goblobber at 42, so competitive. And now I'm going to start to creep up because one, I ran out of ammunition, right? So obviously this isn't important, but he doesn't know that, and you'll notice he's still teasing coming after it. So I'm going to kind of use it as bait for a little while as I move forward until I'm ready to make a full commitment. And I'm not going to do that until I'm convinced I'm not going to get anything out of this. Now you might say, well, you want to rush in because of the Hell Cannon or whatever. I'm never going to get my stinky little stunty hands on that Dwarf Cannon. Hell Cannon, we just don't have anything that's quick to get out there. The only thing that would be a possibility would be gyrocopters, and you would be crazy to bring gyrocopters against Chaos, really, because they always bring the Flying Goon Squad. So now I've completely abandoned my artillery, which doesn't have rounds anyways. He doesn't take the bait and go after it. Instead, he dives into my army here and gets into my my Thunderers. So I'm going to send back the Dragonback Slayers to try to deal with that. It looks like he hits his own sorcerer with that shot. That was pretty funny. So here we go. Our line's going to start to meet. We're both on opposite angles, so nobody's going to get a great charge, which is fine by me because he has much better charge bonus than I do. That's really the only advantage he has. If you look at the stats, like Chaos Warriors, right? They've got high leadership, high armor, 34 melee attack, 38 weapon strength. Well, my Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, melee attack is sometimes much higher than theirs, and the weapon damage is almost the same, and they're about half the price. And that's just based on where my leadership is. So as they get closer to these guys, you're going to see the melee attack shoots up to 36, weapon damage is at 29. So I'm going to hit more often, but he's going to hit for more damage. So it's not, for twice the price, is that really good? I don't think so. So back here with my Thunderers, I've been fighting his Chaos Lord. I forced him to use his potion, so that was a good result for me. But now I'm going to send in the rest of my infantry and just keep the Dragonback Slayers as a deterrent for guarding my one unit of Thunderers that really is still considerable. So he's bringing in his Chaos Lord into the rear of my infantry. Always a good idea. Rear charging is vastly superior to head on, even if you're coming from the air. Try to remember that. A lot of people with cavalry would never charge headlong, They always try to go around, but when it comes to flying, they'll often just charge headlong. I even do it myself sometimes. I get in a bit of a rush. That is not the way to go. So I still have some miners in reserve and the Grumbling Guard. The Grumbling Guard is going to get moved in here, as you can see, and so are the miners. The only thing I'm interested in leaving as a deterrent, and it's the only one that's really is one, is these Slayers, because they're anti-large, they're charge-proof. So they're going to get in on his Chaos Lord here. A lot of little guys just hacking at this giant dragon. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word dragon. That's not a hard word to find. And you'll notice that they're slowing him down, so it's harder and harder for him to peel away, which can either be great because you catch him and you can kill him, or it can just be good because you're delaying how long and how often he can cycle charge. And even my Thunderers with the buffs that I have, 28 melee attack, 31 weapon strength with 80 armor, is not bad. They're not, they're not as weak as other people's missiles. The same goes for Quarrelers, and you'll see a lot of people make the mistake of treating them like they would peasant bowmen. Well, they're not peasant bowmen. Those guys can fight. With the right buffs and good tactics, I've seen them, beat things that are, twice as expensive. So the Dwarfs are not to be underestimated. So here I'm getting a good chain route on his guys. Over on the left, he's winning, but almost everything he has is dead except for one unit, which I'll resolve by having my Thunderers here shoot into the rear of them. I don't know if I've started that yet, but that's definitely how we're going to handle it. Nope, right now they're firing at the dragon, the Chaos Lord. So he's going to be cycle charging in and out with his air units, but his infantry completely fled. Now we've got the Chaos Sorcerer pretty well tied down. He's going to take damage pretty quickly. No anti-large in these guys, but a lot of armor piercing, which is going to allow them to do considerable damage. I'm going to bring even more Dwarfs into the back of that battle. Over here, the last of the Dwarf Warriors that were on the left break. Now I'm going to send in the Dragonback Slayers to help fight all these dragons and manticores and all this fun stuff. And then I notice, he's got some infantry. Now these Chosen could have went this way, but I agree with him almost that maybe that wasn't the best choice, because using Chosen to kill some Thunderers is probably not the best bang for his buck. He's trying to get a good solid rear charge here, but in the meantime it's going to give my Thunderers more time to get a good line on his back and fire into them. They have very high armor, but they're not shielded, so that is going to have some damaging effects on them for sure. Back over here in the pit, you'll see that his Manticore is wavering. Most of his leadership's been chased off entirely, so now he's just really looking at a couple of Chaos Warriors with great weapons and his Chosen with great weapons. And these guys are not in a good situation. They're outnumbered by the Dwarfs, and they're being shot in the back. And then I even bring in a nice rear charge. That's going to dispatch them entirely, which is going to be the end of the battle, except for, of course, the Hell Cannon Chaos Dwarves do not surrender. So we're going to go ahead and finish them out. And we're going to get a win here for the Dwarfs over Chaos, which is, I've had a lot of success killing the Dwarfs as Chaos, so it's kind of cool to see it go the other way. Just a Pyrrhic victory. So let's look at the tail of the tape. Very homogeneous, I would say, kills wise. You see 43 here, 43, 55, 35, 39, 43, 42, and 33. This is the hallmark of a good build in a lot of ways. When you're looking at the post-battle statistics, look for a lot of people to help carry the load as far as kills. And then look at the people who have less kills and try to ask yourself, well, why is that? For example, the miners didn't go until late and they're cheap, so they don't get as many kills. That's fine. The Runesmith is primarily there to buff and whatnot, so his lower kill count is fine as well. The Dragonback Slayers spent almost their entire time, and so did the Thunderers, attacking his lords. That's why we got a chevron here, and if they could get a chevron, I bet they'd have one. And they were a huge deterrent to him being able to use his flying more effectively. And 43 out of the Goblobber, considering he brought, a very small army of high quality, is cool, with the exception of the Chaos Marauders. Now looking at his army, the Chosen with great weapons, just, they're going to demolish the Dwarfs. His Hell Cannon Just wrecked it, 156 kills, so that's fantastic. His Chaos Warriors with great weapons were good. Aspiring Champions were okay. They did what they're supposed to do. Chaos Lord's good. Sorcerer of Fire was good. The Manticore did well. The Chaos Marauders did well for the price. I was surprised. I expected them to do very poorly. But, 3 of these is 1,200. If there was one thing I'd say to my opponent, besides good game, because he played a very good game, I mean, that was definitely a battle, is I would consider taking out the Chaos Marauders and doing what I do and bring a Gore-Beast Chariot. The Gore-Beast Chariot you can get excellent results with, and if you don't, a lot of times it's because you can force your opponent to overcommit to it, which will open other avenues to you if you know how to work with it. So you might want to learn to use that. That would make this an even stronger build for fighting the Dwarfs. But otherwise, I'd say he's got the number here. It's just, like I said, if you have the Holy Trinity with the Dwarfs, it's Thorgrim, it's the Runesmith, and it's our dear friends, the Grumbling Guard. Together, they make crappy infantry as good as infantry that's twice their cost, or darn near twice their cost. And so you want a lot of them. Just bring a bunch of dorks, and you'll be surprised, some dork dwarfs, and you'll be surprised how well you do. Sorry so long, but I felt like there was a lot that we could learn from this fight, and I want to share all that with you. If you enjoyed the battle, or if you learned something, hopefully both, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Until the next time, this is the Magnus, and I'll see you on the ladder.